Greetings Mookers and welcome to the first introductory talk in the challenge of obesity. My name is John Mengies and I am a research fellow here at the University of Edinburgh. I'm a neuroscientist and I'm interested in how the brain controls appetite and how that's affected by stress and by obesity and by diet. In our first session we'll discuss the nature of the problems associated with obesity and their global scale. So most of us already know that it's unhealthy to be overweight. Many of us will have tried to lose weight or not to put it on in the first place. And you may not have to look very far to see evidence for the existence of what's called an epidemic in obesity. And the chances are that most of you are watching this in a developed country, and in the past few decades the prevalence of obesity in those countries has increased massively. This is recent data from the OECD and shows the prevalence of obesity in several developed countries. The United States leads the way with countries like Mexico, the United Kingdom, New Zealand and Hungary not too far behind. At present, around a quarter of these countries' populations are overweight. There are some countries like Korea or Japan where the prevalence of obesity is still rather low, but the bad news is that the rates here are increasing more steeply than elsewhere. Obesity really is a global problem. Obesity does not discriminate between the sexes. The prevalence in women is just as high as in men, slightly more so in fact. But even healthy women have slightly larger fat stores than equally healthy men. These extra fat stores are generally considered to be an evolutionary adaptation to help women with the challenges of pregnancy and lactation. The extra fat stores are used to help nutrition for children after childbirth. But it's not only adults who have become obese. Children are becoming obese too. This shows probably the most distressing set of statistics associated with obesity. A few generations ago, obesity in children was extremely rare, often confined to cases of tractable endocrine disorders. Even as recently as the 1970s, fewer than 5% of children were overweight. Now, obesity is common, even in children. For example, in the United Kingdom, almost a quarter of the population of children is obese or overweight. Why does being obese matter? Well, to put it bluntly, being obese increases your chances of dying. From figures gathered in the United States, of the 60 million obese individuals in that country, around 300,000 are likely to die this year because of diseases associated with obesity. And when you think of these huge numbers, remember that this is just one country, and all the deaths that are a consequence of obesity are entirely preventable. They need not occur. The primary change associated with obesity is accumulation of energy stores. Now, humans can store energy in a variety of ways, but the most efficient way in the long term is as fat. So if we overeat, the stores of fat in our bodies increase, and this can alter the shape of our bodies. In addition to these obvious outward changes, many other less easily noticeable changes can occur simultaneously, and often these only become apparent when they manifest as a disease. Obesity is a risk factor for many diseases affecting many different organs and systems. This is an incomplete list, but it shows the major consequences of obesity over the longer term. Obesity is associated with cardiovascular diseases and some forms of cancer. Diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes, is a common and serious consequence of obesity and can result in retinopathy and loss of vision and neuropathy and the loss of limbs. The relationship between obesity, in this case measured as body mass index or BMI, and the risk of diabetes is clear. As one's body mass increases, and this usually reflects an increase in adiposity, then the relative risk of developing diabetes also increases. Note that there's a sharp increase in the risk after a BMI of around 25, the upper limit of what's considered to be healthy. So what causes obesity? Well, it's a simple question, and on the face of it there's a simple answer. Obesity is caused by overconsumption of calories. The most abundant source of calories is food, but don't dismiss the contribution from drinks, especially sugary carbonated drinks, and alcohol too. Calories are used by basal metabolism. Even at rest we use calories. The brain is famously responsible for around 20% of our total energy use. Unfortunately, however, you can't think yourself thin. Instead, the majority of calorie use relies on daily physical activity and additional voluntary exercise. But the claim that obesity is caused by a simple energy imbalance is rather unsatisfactory. If obesity is caused by overeating, well, what causes that? Well, there are numerous complex factors that drive overeating. Our age, our gender, our jobs, the amount of exercise we do, stress levels and social expectations. There are genetic predispositions to overeat, and certain disease states or medication can also cause overeating. Next week, we'll look more closely at one mechanism that's been suggested to underlie the increase in prevalence of obesity: food addiction. But this week, I want you to consider the following. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, is it possible that you can be fat and still be fit? Can you be obese and be metabolically healthy?